an indelible impression on her. Of course, Françoise left it to her husband to offer this proposal, yet each time he brought it up, she would miraculously appear from the kitchen, hoisting a plate of mouth-watering delicacies. At first, Cosgrove, Smith, and Watts would hear none of it. A theater was an investment sinkhole. Grandville had fewer than 6,000 citizens, at least half of whom could not afford a plate of oysters, let alone a theater ticket. Perhaps an especially popular theatrical could draw an audience from Stockbridge and Lenox, maybe even from Albany. But how often might that happen? Once a year? Twice? Shops, offices, taverns, a small hotel. Cubic foot by foot, that's where the profit on our $200,000 investment lies. Enter Françoise de Vries with a plate of steaming asparagus blanketed with nutmeg-scented hollandaise. She is singing. No, not chanting some cheerful housewifey ditty as she scoops the stalks onto the men's plates, but singing full out La Pute Protestante from the operetta Nell Gwynn. She is a contralto with a silverware jangling vibrato modeled after Lillian Russell. Not even Hans has ever heard her vocalize with such passion, and certainly not at such volume. She concludes on a thrilling high C, optional in the original score. Stunned silence follows, then a full minute of applause. J. Cosgrove knocks his asparagus fork against his ale mug, calling for order. "I suggest we name the theater the Phoenix," he says. This is but one of several variations on the story. Another has Françoise entering the de Vries salon warbling, "Master, master, do not leave me, hear me ere you go," from the Pirates of Penzance, and Cosgrove, as Frederick, crooning back, "Faithless woman, to deceive me, I who trusted so." An unlikely scenario, considering how racy the Gilbert lyric was regarded at the time, especially as sung on a Sunday afternoon in a family salon in New England. But, singing or no, from the minutes of that meeting preserved at the Grandville Historical Society, it is clear that on that November Sunday a motion was passed to construct a theater at the high end of the Melville block, contiguous with but separate from the main edifice. Further, for obvious reasons but without comment, this theater would be known as the Phoenix, a roundabout tip of the hat to the anonymous arsonist. For the project, Cosgrove selected a Pittsfield architect who previously had designed a cavernous bank in that city and a birdcage-like conservatory for Sway Lodge. His name was Karl Klopp, and much to the de Vries's dismay, he had never designed a theater in his life. Upon meeting Klopp, Françoise de Vries even had her doubts that the clean-shaven young architect had ever been inside one. Surely the de Vrieses were in no position to protest Cosgrove's choice. They had won Françoise's major goal, and would not have been about to risk that by objecting to the designated architect. Furthermore, though Hans de Vries constituted 1/4 of the Melville Project's board of directors, his actual monetary investment was 1/4 of that quarter, just his $6,000 settlement from his Hartford fire insurance policy. Hans's fellow directors were all gentlemen, so the relative size of his share was never mentioned, at least in his presence, but it must have put an unspoken limit on Hans's options for disagreement. Hark! Once again Françoise de Vries flies in from the wings, but this time, in lieu of tender morsels and treble warbles, she comes bearing train tickets. With money she had been saving scrupulously for a theater trip to New York City, she has purchased a round-trip ticket from Bennington to Quebec on the Central Vermont and Canada Railroad. Her first thought was to accompany Klopp on the excursion, but even this free-thinking woman recognizes the inappropriateness of that idea. Instead, she arranges for her maiden cousin, Camilla, of Quebec City, to serve as Mr. Klopp's guide and translator on his tour of Le Monument National. Françoise's scheme was exceeded by reality. Not only did young Karl Klopp create detailed drawings,